Welcome to Justice in Two Languages.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of Justice in Two Languages with attorney David Elias Idinopulos, the founder of Elias Law out in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am your host, Mike Leon. David is a bilingual personal injury attorney who's been representing New Mexicans after serious crashes, and he's been helping families navigate situations that can feel unfair long before a case even reaches a courtroom. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about underinsured and uninsured drivers in the state of New Mexico. David's going to explain why it's such a common issue and what it means for people trying to recover after a crash. David, it's good to see you as always. In the state of New Mexico, in the cases that you handle, how often do these uninsured and underinsured drivers show up? And in what kind of situations do you tend to see them in?
Sure, Mike. And thank you so much for asking this. This is a great question. It's a great topic. And a lot of people don't understand how uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage works. Let's suppose you pull to a four-way stop in New Mexico. You've got good insurance on your vehicle. The driver to the right of you may have a minimal policy. The driver straight ahead on the other side of the intersection may have no insurance at all. And the driver to the left of you, again, has a minimal policy. New Mexico, unfortunately, is a poor state. Demographically, I think we're 46th or 47th in America. So what that means is a lot of people will just buy the most basic coverage that they can possibly buy. And then they do that only so that they can get their vehicle registered on the road. And then once that insurance expires, they have no insurance. So having an uninsured and underinsured motorist policy means that no matter what accident you get in, you have insurance, even if the other guy didn't have insurance. And it comes up in all kinds of different ways. You get involved in an accident with a drunk driver who had no insurance, and you've got three vehicles on your policy, and you have made the decision to stack your insurance coverages. Let's say each of your insurance coverage was $50,000. By stacking those coverages, you now have $150,000 worth of insurance. Doesn't mean your claim is worth $150,000, but if your claim is worth $150,000, you're going to be able to make that claim against your own insurance policy, even if the drunk driver did not have insurance. And it comes up in all kinds of other ways too. One of the big areas that we practice in, believe it or not, are drive-by shootings, right? So you are, God forbid, but you're driving along and somebody comes up next to you in a car, points a gun at the window, shoots out of that motor vehicle and somehow hits you, or you get caught in the crossfire between two vehicles. To you, that is an accident. The insurance company will not pay anything on behalf of the shooters because that is an illegal act. But to you, the victim, that's an accident. If you have uninsured motorist coverage, you have the right to make an uninsured motorist claim. I once made an uninsured motorist claim for a gentleman who had 9 cars and he was shot in a drive-by shooting. But 9 times $25,000 means we could get that gentleman paid.
That's great stuff and great info about New Mexico, especially why people get such low coverage. So let me ask you then, back to your scenario of the four-way stop sign. So if someone is hit by a driver in that scenario, with little or no insurance, what are some of the first challenges that usually start to unfold for the injured party?
In a situation like that, where you're at a four-way stop, it's going to be a factual dispute. Who had the right of way at that intersection? Who got there first, et cetera, et cetera. But assuming that you can eliminate the factual issues, the first thing that we do is we contact the at-fault driver's insurance company. And many times we will get, depending on who the company is, we will get little to no cooperation, or we will find out that the driver involved in that accident was an excluded driver, or that his insurance had expired, or even worse, if it's a multi-vehicle accident, we will find out that he didn't have enough coverage for all of those. That the limit he had was the bare minimum in the state of New Mexico, and there's just not enough coverage to go around for all the people and all the vehicles that are involved in the accident. But if you have a robust, healthy, uninsured motorist policy, what the other vehicle had on his or her insurance really doesn't matter. It's who had the most coverage at that accident scene that establishes the maximum amount of money that we can get for somebody.
David, let me go back to something you just said there about the coverages and sometimes people not understanding. So a family's looking at their auto policy right now. what are some things that you would want them, or you would harp on them, that they should understand about and UIM coverage? What are some of those misunderstandings that people tend to have about it?
Here's the big misunderstanding, and it drives me nuts. A client will come in and I'll say, "Did you have uninsured motorist coverage?" And the client will tell me, "Well, I had full coverage." And they will tell me this in English, they will tell me this in Spanish. The phrase, quote unquote, full coverage has no legal meaning whatsoever. You can purchase the crappiest insurance policy in the state of New Mexico, and that vehicle coverage that you have will be, quote unquote, full coverage. Full coverage means nothing. The coverage that you have is the coverage that you purchase. And in the state of New Mexico, an insurance company is required to offer you uninsured motorist coverage, and it has to obtain an actual rejection of uninsured motorist coverage in writing. It also has to offer you the opportunity to stack your coverages. In other words, if you have multiple vehicles on a policy, you can stack those uninsured motorist coverages to aggregate them, so that you have, if you had 4 vehicles and each one had $50,000 of uninsured motorist coverage, you would, in an accident, have $200,000 of coverage. But what insurance companies really do, because they know that everybody price shops at this point, and so they sort of play hide the ball. We're not going to really explain to you how these coverages work. We're not going to explain to you the fact that you have to accept or reject certain coverages. What we will do is we will tell you, "Hey, we hunted around, blah, blah, blah. We're presenting to you the lowest premium." And a lot of times people just sign on the dotted line. They walk out of there, "Yay, I've got my insurance card." And then when an accident happens, they find out that to get that lowest premium, they had to reject uninsured motorist coverage, or they had to reject stacking. And that is a rude awakening when you get involved with that driver at the 4-way intersection who, as it turns out, didn't have any insurance.
David, in your experience, how does the case change when the person responsible for the crash doesn't have the resources to cover the harm that they've caused in that accident?
If you have uninsured motorist coverage, I think it actually makes the value of the case go up. And here's the reason why. Insurance companies have a duty to the person that they insured, right? And many times insurance companies say, "Well, this person paid us the premiums, so we have a duty to fairly evaluate this claim." And a lot of times insurance companies, their mindset is, since this person is our insured, we actually owe them a little bit of a different duty than we would owe to somebody who was not our insured. The other thing is this, and this is a little technical, we're going to get in the weeds a little bit, but if you have an uninsured driver who didn't have any insurance, and you are making an uninsured motorist claim on your own insurance policy, what we as attorneys do is, if we can't get the money that we think is appropriate for our client, we will sue the uninsured driver, and we will sue our own insurance company. And because we have sued the uninsured driver who lives in the state of New Mexico, as our client does, the insurance company, our own insurance company that we have sued, cannot remove that case to federal court. And that's the point at which insurance companies get very nervous, because instead of a complaint which is, David Idinopulos versus Mike Leon, right? It's a lawsuit that says David Idinopulos versus Mike Leon and State Farm, Allstate, Progressive, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one of the rare instances in which we can tell a jury, "Hey, the money's coming out of the insurance company." Insurance companies do not like that. There is a rule of evidence that says that you cannot, under ordinary circumstances, mention insurance in front of a jury. But if an insurance company is named as a party, obviously they're going to be mentioned in front of a jury.
David, we mentioned the show title, or I mentioned the show title in the intro, Justice in Two Languages. Let's talk about that second language and the Spanish part of this. For the Spanish-speaking families out there, paperwork, insurance terminology, I've seen it firsthand. It's very confusing. Sometimes these words don't translate. What kind of issues have you seen tend to come up in the language barrier, especially when that barrier is detrimental to the case?
Many times a client will come into us and they're Spanish speakers. They are doing whatever they can possibly do to follow the rules in the state of New Mexico and the United States of America, and say that they will proudly show us a proof of insurance and tell us, yo tenía full coverage. And again, full coverage doesn't mean anything. Now, a lot of times when we take a look at that policy, we can find sort of loopholes that the insurance agent didn't actually follow. And by not following those loopholes, not following those rules, we can force an insurance company to provide the coverage that otherwise would have been rejected. So a lot of times we'll get policies where an insurance company did not quote the cost for uninsured motorist coverage. So somebody comes in and says, "Yo tenía full coverage." Well, your policy doesn't say full coverage, but the insurance agent was so greedy they didn't bother quoting the price on the coverages that you rejected. That's a loophole. We can force the insurance company to put that coverage back on. But typically what happens is particularly with Spanish speaking clients, they will go to the insurance agents that are in their neighborhoods, and they will not ask a lot of questions. Very often, those insurance companies in their neighborhoods are they're kind of the bottom feeders of the insurance industry. All they want is the money. They don't want to provide the quality of service. They don't want to provide the policies, and we scramble like heck to find a hook that we can force the insurance companies to provide coverage.
David, as we put a bow on this episode, somebody's listening to this right now. They have no idea what coverage they have after listening to you and everything you just said. What would help them get a clearer picture of where they stand on their insurance coverage today? What's a piece of advice you would leave them with?
What I tell them, one, is to shop around. Two, ask a lot of questions. And three, look very closely at what is called your deck sheet. It's the declarations page. It's the piece of paper that says what you are insured for. And if you see under uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage that it is blank or it says rejected, get down to your insurance company, call them on the phone and say, "I want uninsured motorist coverage on my vehicles." Here's the dirty little secret about uninsured motorist coverage. It costs almost nothing. I'll give you an example, right? Most insurance policies are sort of front loaded on the premiums. And what that means is to get the state minimum level of insurance coverage for your vehicle, that's going to be something like 90% of the total cost of the premium. So to get uninsured motorist coverage added to your policy costs virtually nothing. I mean, we're literally talking about maybe $1 or $2 per day. To have insurance coverage that will protect you in an auto accident, it may cost you another $25 a month, which ain't that much, all things considered. Maybe the cup of coffee at an Allsup's or something like that per day, maybe a little bit less than that. So again, if that declarations page says that you rejected uninsured motorist coverage or there is a blank in the premium, it's not quoted, make sure you contact your insurance company. For God's sakes, get uninsured motorist coverage.
David, I can't thank you enough for the time, the insights, explaining this to the audience. I truly appreciate it as always, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And that's it for today's episode of Justice in Two Languages. If you want to learn more about the work David and the team does over at Elias Law, you want to connect with David, do me a favor right now, visit abogadoelias.com. You're going to find all the resources that you need in English y en Español to help you understand your rights and feel supported as you move forward after a crash. Thank you to everyone for listening to this episode. But before you go, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a review and comment, or share the episode right now with someone who may be underinsured or uninsured. As always, I'm Mike Leon. See everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.